Hi, everybody. Welcome, and apologize for not being live today. With this show, it's always something, but out of our control today. But we nonetheless want to bring you an amazing show. So thank you so much for watching. This is The Yard Sign. I'm Jonny Torres, your host as always. Got a great cast of characters for today's show. And, of course, plenty to talk about since quite a bit has changed since we were here together last week. And so let's go ahead and bring up today's topics, and then I'll introduce today's cast. We've actually got a new face on the show, which I'm excited about. We're going to break down the election results, which I guess could now be pretty much considered election results, and if not, I'm sure one of them will correct me. But we'll also bring it down to the state level, because here in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis introducing what can be basically summarized as an anti-mob bill, and we'll tell you why in just a little bit. State of the economy, you brought in somebody who might know a little something about that, and he's going to be our fresh face for today's show. And then Biden's transition executive orders, and again, wasting no time to try to undo the Trump presidency. Biden has already laid out what his plans are going to be, again, going back to politics of old, right, and making that narrative known in the first 100 days and seeing how much you can accomplish. And so we'll pick apart what those executive orders are with this bunch of characters over here. Let's go ahead and turn it over to our center table. Hey, good-looking group for tonight. And again, from left to right, got a fresh face on the far left. That is Dalton Grados. What's up, buddy?
What's up? How's it going? Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little bit about exactly what you bring to the table, literally, figuratively, in just a minute. Joe Wicker back on the show.
Guys?
What's up, buddy? How you doing? You doing all right? Coffee kicking in?
7:30 p.m. coffee. Got to keep it going. Keep it going.
How strong are we talking on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, it's whatever. It's Keurig French press. So I don't know.
The Bakemore Pies special?
It's Bakemore Pies. Yeah.
All right. And now becoming a regular on the show, which we're excited about, looking awfully tan today, is Jodie Lopes.
Hey, you mean becoming a regular again?
Right, exactly.
So
Yes,
I just took
correct.
a hiatus, and now you can't get rid of me again.
No.
Although I am double caffeinated up compared to Joe, because I had a Coca-Cola on my way here and a coffee when I got here. So
Wow.
let's go.
So today's going to be an
Do
interesting
dang.
show, to say the least. And on the far right, that beautiful gentleman over there who's in dire need of a haircut is Anibal Cabrera.
Oh, I got a good haircut. It's fine now. I have not been caffeinated whatsoever because it just doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Well, and I don't know. You on caffeine, that's a dangerous combination there. So, no?
That wouldn't
Not really?
That wouldn't be the dangerous combination.
All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody, for watching today's show. Again, we got quite a bit of topics, and so we'll start with election results now that, the remaining states have just about all been called. It looks like, remind me, guys, that's Georgia went for Biden, Arizona, and Pennsylvania all went for Biden. Did I get that right?
I did Pennsylvania.
Supposedly.
Yeah, I don't know where anybody's gone
Allegedly.
anymore.
So
Well, we're a little short on the internet side today.
I'm
which
seeing
is,
Georgia's still not called yet.
So on
right. It was like blue-ish, right?
Yeah,
so
blue-ish.
Google is saying that Georgia is still not too close to call, and I just read a report that that Georgia just found another 2,600 votes that were uncounted mysteriously. So
Where are they finding them?
more
Yeah,
than
but is 2,600 votes really going to
No, it doesn't.
swing
It
the
doesn't
results?
matter.
I mean,
No, it
especially
doesn't.
in a state that size.
I think it's 12,000 difference.
I mean,
or something.
I'm looking at Real Clear Politics, who honestly, at the end of all this, were the ones that truly held out until the results were firm.
Correct.
And they've got all the states called. So Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, all gone for Trump. All went for Biden, with the exception of North Carolina, which did eventually go to Trump. But again, by 1-2 points across the country. I mean, it's amazing. This was a pretty incredible race, and I mean, so many things I think both affected the race and have kind of put this in this precarious position here, because I think if there had not been coronavirus, I think it would have been a Trump landslide.
How do Republicans win all up and down the map, and then Trump lose? Trump's the one Republican.
Well, we talked about it in
basically.
the other show, which is the 1%. And I'm skeptical about this theory, but the 1% of Republicans out there who did not like Trump, but were still going to vote Republican down the line everywhere else. And again, with an anomaly like Trump as president, as polarizing as he was on both sides of the aisle, that could likely be the factor. I mean,
I think it's more common than we want to think that it is.
Correct.
Right? Like, and I just think that it's showing now. But yeah, and I think a lot of people, if they did that, probably thought no harm, no foul, because we'll keep, if as long as they go red down the ticket, we keep Senate, maybe we win some House, right? So
Which really did happen.
Yeah.
We still have 2 more Senate races to be voted on, which will be January 4th, I believe, in Georgia for those 2 particular
The runoff,
Senate,
right?
Yeah, the runoffs in those Senate seats, which Republicans are actually very confident they will be able to pick up. Just because for special elections, it's who can actually get the vote out, and you're going to see a lot of big hitters in the Republican and the Democrat side do their best to get those votes out there. But I have to agree. I think a lot more Republicans than we thought, and again, he made inroads with blacks, with Latins, even with females. It was that 4% increase in the white educated male that really took him off.
Why didn't that happen in Florida? I don't understand the Florida outlier. So Florida's a very diverse state, right? Mm-hmm. The Republicans in Congress picked up 2 House seats
in South Florida.
In South Florida, mind you, okay, which is majority minority. Mm-hmm. Then on top of that, in the state legislature, which is another representation of down ballot races, the Florida House picked up 2 seats and now is just shy of a supermajority. And Trump wins Florida by 300,000 votes. But in some of these other states that are some of your typical swing states, Trump just gets annihilated. Like I don't know. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anibal. I was just saying, I think a lot of it has to do with how we handled the lockdown and coronavirus, and how I think in Florida we recognized how important our rights are. And I just think that in Florida we said, there's no way we're doing what these other states are doing. And I think that's why we got the heavy Republican vote here.
I saw an article that said, it was quoting a regular hourly wage worker who said, I'm a Republican, but I didn't vote for Trump, but I voted for Biden with the hopes to bring back some normalcy. And it reminded me of what we talked about a few weeks ago, where I was referencing what Jeffrey Rivera had said, which is the left has created all this controversy for months and months and months now, whether it's coronavirus, the lockdowns, the usurpation of people's rights, religious liberties, all sorts of stuff, plus the Antifa and the riots and things like that going on, that people literally voted against their own self-interests just to bring back
sense of
peace and stability, and that the problem with that is that we just taught politicians and consultants that if you want to win an election, just cause chaos and mayhem, and the people will literally get tired of it and they'll fire the guy that's there.
But that chaos and mayhem has different results at the end of the day. In Florida, we won Florida handedly. We were able to pick up seats and everything else. In other parts of the country, they were able to. We were expecting a deficit of up to 15 seats in the house, and we're up to what, I think 11, maybe 12 now.
And we picked up
less than 10. I think it's now we're in the single digits.
Well, we lost a couple seats. We picked up 7, lost 2 for a net gain of 5 in the Congress. Okay. And we won a Senate seat, lost a Senate seat. I mean, we knew we were going to lose. I think we knew we were going to lose Cory Gardner in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And then picked up the Alabama seat that we never should have lost anyway. Got that one back. But I mean, all over the country, you have Republicans winning, except at the top.
Well, it's expected. We didn't do very well in Arizona. We did amazing in Texas, and in other parts of the country. I think the the Rust Belt, those that didn't even show up to vote in 16 showed up to vote on the Democratic side for Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Now, do I think there's still a lot of irregularities happening in those votes? Yes, but I don't think it's enough to flip those states back to Republican hands. I think the Trump narrative in some parts of the country did worse. And those parts of the country are suburban households outside of Phoenix, outside of Atlanta, outside of Illinois, where you expected to be a higher Republican turnout. You didn't see that this time around. And that's what caused a lot of the states that flipped to where it is. Again, it's smart for Trump to attack McCain. No, it was never smart for Trump to attack McCain. And that lost him Arizona. When you were watching news feeds and articles with Miss McCain on there supporting and saying not to vote for Trump, that works in Arizona. It doesn't work in Ohio or in Florida, but it works in Arizona.
Well, look, and let's be real. Not all military members are conservative. They're not all Republicans. But it was one of the things that a lot of Republicans immediately took issue with. A lot of these Republicans that inevitably voted for Biden, these were folks that was one of those things. That, I mean, this was an American hero. This was literally someone. It wasn't like he just served his time and went on about his life. This guy was literally a prisoner of war, and then to get disparaged in the way that he was by the president, again, never sat well with a lot of Republicans, and he continued to double down on that time after time, even after he died. And I think that, again, that very well could have cost him Arizona. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Didn't bother me one bit.
But you're not the voter that it worked
because with. No, I know what you're saying, because what people so first of all, I will acknowledge that, in our lifetime when John McCain was still living, when he was alive, there really wasn't anybody else alive that had suffered so much for their country, right? I mean, the guy just suffered so much. And as a veteran, we acknowledge that, and, it is what it is, right? I mean, he has a unique story. However, whether you're a combat vet or not, when you get into politics and that becomes your career field, okay, the rough and tumble of politics is to be expected. And actually, other combat veterans 30, 40 years later aren't going to have tons of sympathy for you, because now all of a sudden you don't want to, get involved in politics.
But it wasn't about sympathy. It was
John McCain
was blatant disrespect.
John McCain was smacking around Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump got asked about it, and he made a stupid joke. People, I mean, come on. Obviously, what he said was,
even after he died.
Obviously, what he said was it's disrespectful, and it was a stupid joke. But it's just something he said. And I'm just saying that if you're in politics, and John McCain knew this.
But the problem was some of the insults went far beyond John McCain. It wasn't just attacking him. It was saying, like, all prisoners of war. When he said, well, losers get caught, or whatever it was, like, he would generalize some of the attacks on McCain.
Are you talking about the stuff are you talking about the stuff that they said, the purported that Trump said when he was in Europe? Because
they took that out of context.
Because that was never that was anonymous sources that said he said something, and we don't even know. You're just saying that by him criticizing John McCain, that's a criticism of anybody that's a prisoner of war. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he criticized John McCain for having been captured.
Right.
I mean, that was on the record.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, he disparaged an entire group of veterans.
It was a dumb joke
for literally putting their lives on the line. I didn't see. I mean, look, I can tell when he's joking, when he's not. And again, to me, that's a joke that may have been a joke, but crossed the line.
I guess my point is that I appreciate that civilians want to give deference to combat veterans and whatnot. But for John McCain, who had served in politics for like 40 years, okay, getting criticized and taking some jabs, you're not above it.
Oh, I'm not saying
you're not above it.
I'm not saying he shouldn't have been criticized, for his policies, for going easy on Obama. Like, there's tons of stuff to criticize him on.
Right.
But having been a prisoner of war and having gotten caught was definitely not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know how much further that carried on. I thought that was done and over with years ago.
That's done and over with.
I thought that was a long time ago.
But not in Arizona.
But he doubled down even after he died.
It's an Arizona conversation.
He kept attacking McCain even after he died.
When you talk about national politics and in how you win the presidency is by states. So the Electoral College situation, Arizona is a very big play.
Right.
And if you want to have that play, you don't continually attack the one family that runs Arizona. It's like you purposely attacking the Bushes and expecting to win in Texas. That's just not, or attacking the Kennedys.
I voted for McCain when he ran for president, and I respect the guy, but he's not a king.
Yeah,
no, that's not what we're saying.
That's not what we're saying. Yeah. I think you're missing the point to where we're not talking about national politics. We're talking about state and local politics. There are some people in some states you can't touch, and it is.
What does his wife and his daughter benefit by coming out and being so anti-Trump? What do they benefit from that, other than what, to defend their dad's honor?
They get a seat on the table in the new administration. They took a bet. They made a bet. The bet won, and now they get a voice in the new administration.
Because I think what a lot of people miss is that
I don't think the daughter wants any part of the new administration.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I think
she's got her show on the View. Yeah, she's got her show on the View.
That family has now much more clout.
She gets to survive on the View for another season.
I just think a lot of people that come out publicly for or against a candidate, people have to remember this may not necessarily be 100% the way they feel. A lot of people are jockeying for position.
Right.
And we got to remember that. You know?
Yeah, look. No, that's absolutely right. Yeah, but again, much like the Cuban vote here, I think going after McCain in Arizona again was the wrong move strategically.
I guess what's surprising,
especially after the primary, like once you won the election, like
Who
leave
cares?
the dude
See,
alone.
but the Cuban
once
vote
he died,
was a policy
leave the man alone.
Right. The Cubans voted on policy. I think.
No,
right?
they did vote on policy, but what I'm saying is it would be like going out there and insulting the Cuban vote.
Right. What's weird to me is that I do understand that personalities, do play a role in people getting elected, but I was surprised by how many people I guess voted against Trump simply based on their feelings and disregarding the policy. If you're truly a Republican,
you're Republicans that voted for Biden absolutely voted on their feelings.
That's what I'm saying. You're a Republican, and you understand the benefit of having of people being able to have more individual liberty, more control over their money, less government intervention in their lives, and so you vote that way. But then you're gonna not vote for Trump as if that's not going against yourself. You're voting against your self-interest.
But we're not talking about we're not talking about tens of millions of people in this. At the end of the day, I'm gonna say it might be maybe 100,000 votes. Collectively throughout all the states that we're talking about which threw it off, and that means that's not 1% of the Republican. That's probably less than 0.5% of the Republican Party, and it's the tone that some people just.
I guess we'll know when Georgia comes out, right? When the result of the Senate seat of the Senate races in Georgia are going to tell you a lot.
I'm really confident that we're going to win those two seats.
But at this point, though, then you have to wonder, with Trump being out of the equation, do you then see a less interested Democratic vote in the runoff because they're like, oh, well, the boogeyman's out of the picture, so
they're not going to show up to vote again.
And Democrats tend to not perform well in
runoffs and
special elections.
Except the fact that because of the Democrat push for harvesting ballots, and I'm using the word harvesting, because of their push towards the mail-in ballot, now all those people that had ballots in the presidential election are going to automatically get those ballots now. So the votes are going to be out there for them to win those Senate seats if they can harvest the ballots and get all those.
Did Georgia automatically send out everyone mail-in ballots? Because I don't think that was one of the states that did that.
I don't know.
Almost positive it's not.
But we're talking about an election that's 2 months later. I can't imagine that they're not just going to send those ballots back out.
I don't think. I'm almost positive, knowing who the governor and how he was the supervisor of election last cycle.
But either way it goes,
he did not. I don't think they sent.
So
out.
Here's the thing, though. Either way it goes, the Democrats know every single voter that voted in 2016, in just now for president in this election, and they're going to have the data to now go after those people and drive them out to vote. And
I think it's going to be really hard to convince them to come out and vote again.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well, I
again,
hope
the
so. I
boogeyman.
hope so.
What's the motivator?
Yeah, the
They
motivator
don't-
was get Trump out.
they don't-
Now nobody cares.
Before I forget, and then maybe we should bring our new cast member in on it. So somebody who's not so political. But before I forget, I just want to throw this out there about Trump. As Trump loses, assuming he's losing and he's leaving, here soon.
Do you think it's still up in the air?
I don't know. I don't
think
know.
it flips at this
I'm
point.
seeing.
I don't
Well,
think it
I'm
flips.
just. I don't want to go down this road. I know we talked about this offline.
Well, we're talking about election
and we're going to
results.
talk about it. Okay, we're going to talk about it. But there's lawyers out there that are saying things that are really bombastic, and they're lawyers. I mean, I'm trying to give them some benefit of the doubt. So if what they're saying is true, we'll see what happens. But here's the thing: Trump now becomes the de facto leader of an entire political faction in this country. Even when he's no longer president.
Sure. He's the most prominent Republican.
He
Yes,
is now the leader of a political faction, and that's never really existed. The president of the United States, or excuse me, the president of that and that president's party, that person has always been kind of the leader of their party, right? And Trump's been the leader of the party for the last 4 years. I mean, I think in 4 years from now, if there is another Republican president, that person is president, but they're sharing power with Donald Trump. And if you're running for office in the next 4 years as a Republican and Donald Trump is against you,
Yeah,
I
you're
think
not
you
gonna
got
win.
problems.
Because it's not just so much Republicans anymore. Now it's Trumpers.
That's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
is the leader of a political faction. And that political faction is not the Republican Party. The Republican Party is merely a vehicle for the Trump vote.
The Republican Party can't keep up with Trump.
No, they can't.
I mean, they don't like him. They can't keep up with him.
Now
And
look,
it is-
let's and I'll transition to the next topic on this now, which is that they're fundraising for two reasons right now. One is to fund these lawsuits that the campaign has going around. I don't think those are going to go anywhere. Where I do think the money is going to go is to the next evolution of the Trump. The Trump brand, the Trump political organization, which is endorsements, campaigns, influence.
Appearances, money.
Yeah, basically influence.
He's going to be a
political
kingmaker.
influence.
He's going to be a
Well,
kingmaker. Dalton, what are we missing?
Well,
what are we missing?
So
here?
I'll say one thing on this. So I actually worked for the campaign this election and went out and knocked over. It was the first campaign I worked on, but I went out and knocked on 1,000 doors during this
Great
election.
number.
In this area, which obviously Florida went red, not Hillsborough County, but Florida in general. And you go out and knock on 1,000 doors, and you definitely get a sense of the pulse of things. And I ran into overwhelming support for Trump. And I could tell you that the main reasons you can break down all these different issues and all these different things he said, personality or whatever, healthcare, economy. But the number one reason was really because people were seeing all of the unrest, the rioting, and the looting. And they really saw that there was only one side that was for law and order. Mm-hmm. There was only one side that really was like, law and order. Like we are not okay with this. So that was a big driver in the rise of.
Did you think it was going to be a landslide?
I did think it was going to be a landslide.
That's what my neighbors were saying.
And the second thing I would say, that would definitely be number one. The second thing is just people fed up with the lockdowns and restrictions and. They can't go to work, and then they see these big protests happening, and they're like, I couldn't go to my grandma's funeral, and she died alone in the hospital, and now you have in
but
like
you
on
get
the
to
streets
protest.
of
But you
Hollywood,
get to protest.
yeah, and even in the most strictly locked down areas like Philadelphia and Hollywood and Los Angeles, they broadcasted on the news 50,000 people marching for BLM and all these things. So a lot of people. So I saw it seemed like there was much of a growth in what they call the silent majority, which was the Trump supporters, and the silent majority not being so silent anymore.
Yeah.
So that's from my experience of that.
Somebody
definitely
was
thought
silent.
it was a landslide.
Somebody was
All right,
silent.
so Dalton, now that we got you, in the action here,
Yeah.
I was going to tell you it's playground rules,
just
man.
gotta jump in.
You gotta just jump in here. So, real quickly, you don't have to tell us your employer, but tell us what you do for a living, because obviously that's going to fall into one of our topics today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So my company is Grados Capital. I'm a one-man show for now, but I trade options in the market every day. So I'm always looking and paying attention to the markets, and just growing that and building that up like any other business owner would.
Yeah.
But my background previously was at a big financial firm as an advisor as well. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, and so again, for those of you who can see the list of topics there, you can imagine why we have them on.
So
We're
you're
gonna
a
talk
normal
little bit
person.
about.
So Dalton's a normal person.
That's right.
Probably
So we're
like
going
a
to talk
normal
about.
person trying to make it through entrepreneurship too, with
Right.
all of this going on. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in
gotta
how
be rough,
the
man.
COVID situation, where you're like doing your own thing and you're a one-person show. At least you can do it from home.
Right.
Probably
What
and
I'm
not
doing
have to
now,
do-
yeah.
yeah, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk a little bit about the economy and, of course, how coronavirus affected that, and the Trump economy versus obviously what we might have coming ahead of us. Let's go ahead and reset today's show. Again, thank you everybody for watching. By the way, big news, we are now on Amazon and Audible. All right.
Heyo.
So if you happen to be on those services as well, you can find the podcast slowly but surely. We're getting to everywhere you want us to be. So again, look for the yard sign on Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and Audible for the audio version of our podcast. Subscribe, leave us a rating, share it with your friends. Thank you so much again for those who listen to the podcast. And if you miss an episode, not only can you find it on Facebook for the video version, but of course you can find every episode on YouTube as well. Again, Dalton Grados joining us, Joe Wicker, Jodie Lopes, and Anibal Cabrera. The DeSantis anti-mob bill, that's how the media is trying to position it here. It's basically a bill that is going to put tougher penalties on anybody who riots, anybody who causes destruction under the name of protesting. Of course, liberals are going to make it out like some sort of First Amendment suppression. Is this necessary? Is this government overkill? How do you guys feel about this DeSantis
I just think
bill?
it's ironic that liberals are inadvertently supporting a Republican form of government. I don't mean as a party, right? For
Yeah,
those listening,
right.
I mean a republic. They all see, the liberals are all about local rule. They're all about hometown rule, and until it benefits them. Like when it's something like environmental policy, they want everybody to do what they say to do, but then let you do something that affects them in a way that they don't like, and then it's like whoa. This isn't democracy. It's not one size fits all. It's local, Yeah, well, you guys rioted, you destroyed businesses, and now you're getting a law put on top of you that's going to stop this nonsense.
Yeah, and it's got a
You
lot
loot,
of things
we
in this
shoot.
law. Yeah.
Yeah.
You loot, we shoot.
Do you have it there, Jodie? Do you have an outline? Or?
I do. I have some of the information that they're doing here. I am just going to try to run through it real quick. Don't hate me if I mess it up. But 7 or more people that cause property damage or injury to others, it becomes a third-degree felony. You can no longer obstruct roadways, and the driver is not liable for injury or death if they're fleeing that mob.
They can't purposefully hit you.
But if they're fleeing,
They're
if you're fleeing from it,
If you're preventing them from leaving. Right?
You can't destroy or topple monuments. It's a second-degree felony. Harassment in public accommodations. Oh, so when you're at the restaurant, they can't come up and harass you anymore when you're sitting there. That's very nice.
Yep.
Because that actually kept me out of a lot of places. RICO.
Well, St. Pete had a huge problem with that
Yep.
because they have so much outdoor dining.
Yeah, and they can enact RICO for the liability. So Black Lives Matter, I don't know where that's going to go. Antifa. Yeah. Increased penalties. There will be a mandatory minimum jail sentence of 6 months if you strike a police officer.
Well, and again, these are all things that there are already laws in place for. So, I mean, do you guys think that this is just overkill? Obviously, some of this stuff is going to get smoothed out in the legislative session that's coming up. We hope to have one of our state legislators with us on the show soon. But do you think it passes as is, or do you think this is something that kind of gets a little bit of tweaking before it gets back to the governor's desk?
I mean, I think, to me, I think it's okay as is. I don't know what will happen in Tallahassee, but, you did say these were laws that existed. And yes, I do think some of these existed in different ways and probably lesser misdemeanors or lesser degrees. But what we found during the rioting here in Tampa was that even if you were arrested, the DA was just letting you go.
Right.
The sheriff was just letting you go.
Yeah, they don't enforce the law.
So what's the point that you take them off the street for maybe a night? You're putting a lot of people in harm's way while you're doing that. Mostly our first responders, because frankly, if you're not going to back them up and punish people, why are they bothering getting involved in taking people off the street? Just let them burn shit, right? So, I hope it stands, and I hope it gets out there, and I hope that it makes the local authorities just have to take a step back and say that we have to prosecute these things and we have to follow through with them, and that we don't get to pick and choose if we're in the city of Tampa or we're in Hillsborough County or we're in Manatee or wherever we are. We're going to follow the same rule.
Is this the same? Because I'm feeling like we saw this earlier. Okay. Is this the same proposed legislation that a couple months ago during the height of the riots and whatnot, the governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate President did a briefing and presented it? Is this the same thing?
I think
or
this
is it different?
I think this is a different.
Or this is because
this is something different that the governor said that he was introducing.
Because when
I thought this was that bill.
Yeah,
I think this is the one he did with Grady Judd.
Because the reason why I'm asking is that when the governor, the Speaker of the House, and the President of the Senate do a press conference together about legislation, that's the signal to you that it's going to make it through. It's going to pass because we've got everybody on board. It's going to happen. It might get tweaked, a little bit here and there, but to get some buy-in from the Senate because they are what they are. But that it's going to pass. And I'm just wondering, is this the same thing? Because
I think it is the same bill. And look,
the media is just covering it again then.
I mean, coronavirus was bad enough for our economy, especially here in Florida where we're so dependent on tourism. And then to have these riots and these protests go on where businesses had to close, businesses had to board up, customers were being harassed. Again, we don't need that kind of nonsense here in Florida. If you want to protest, by all means, go out there and walk your heart out. Go to Tallahassee, go to City Hall, but there's absolutely zero need for destruction.
So I think what happened though was they just brought it up at that press conference with like Grady Judd and everybody, and they were all together. And then I think now it's just coming back out because we're starting session back up again.
Okay. Well, if so, great, because it sounds like most of it's going to make it through.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first was looking at this article and the part where it's saying we can actually would actually make it permissible to shoot looters. My first reaction was like, whoa, can you do that? But also I understand his reasoning for putting that in, because if that is allowed, then guess who's not going to have a problem with looting?
It's a preventative. It's a preventative. You can in certain states.
Yeah.
Because the issue, and I'm not going to get into Florida State Statute 790, but the issue is that in many states you cannot use lethal force to defend property.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You can only use it to defend life. Now,
that's
in some states,
here for our standard
in some states, you can absolutely defend your property. And so I think this is kind of moving in that direction of being able to defend property, but under certain circumstances.
Right.
You're awfully quiet on this one, Anibal.
The reason why I'm quiet about it is because I think it's a lot of pomp and circumstance, honestly.
You don't think it's going to happen?
Not to say I don't think it's going to happen. I think the law is going to pass and everything else. And I think what we're talking about is going to move forward. The problem that I see that's going to occur is the governor going to have to start having to crack heads when it comes to the local officials, making sure that they actually comply.
Well, the biggest
with the
thing
laws
is,
that are
making them
done.
pay a price.
I think it's going to happen? Honestly, I don't know.
If you mess with their money, see, that's just it. These politicians, man. The one thing you can guarantee is that if you say, you're taking money away from public safety for your crazy political stuff and letting people run rampant. Cool. Guess what? Now you're on the hook for all the lawsuits. Have fun. Because whatever money you saved, you're getting ready to spend. I
also feel that what's going to happen.
That's what gets them to listen.
It's going to run. They're not going to listen. What's going to happen is that it's going to clog up the courts. That's going to be a huge situation.
Yeah,
I think we're going to have
they already did it. No, they already threatened. I think Miami or somebody with some I think transportation money or some state money. They already threatened them with it, and they backed off defunding police.
And the antithesis is what happened here in Hillsborough County. That we had a riot. We that burned down some businesses, destroyed some other ones, and then the attorney, the state attorney, Andrew Warren, decided not to press charges. And so these people get off scot-free, basically saying, you know what, hey, it's okay. We get it. You were angry. You destroyed thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars in infrastructure, but, it's okay. You were angry.
And he was reelected.
Think about it. If you're the business owner,
reelected.
He shouldn't have been.
The people in Hillsborough County decided to reelect him.
If you're the business owner,
he shouldn't have been.
If you're the business owner, you ought to be able to have some recourse when your government, I'm not saying they should be able to, but who regulates you, then turns around and says, "Oh, we're not going to enforce the law."
I would have sued the state attorney and the sheriff's office and the police department.
Well, and I just want to go back to like where you say you're a business and you're in a county that regulates you or a state that regulates you. Part of this too is that the insurance is regulated in each state as well. And as a business owner, you can't even buy coverage for these things because as a state, our CFO isn't making our policies change for that, right? And like I do not think that civil unrest should be covered under an insurance policy. But if you have if you have no other recourse,
because that's terrorism, right? Doesn't that fall under terrorism and acts of God or whatever? It's an
all those
exclusion
things
for
are excluded,
terrorist activity or something.
But the CFO writes the policies in Florida.
I would think arson, but I mean, I would think arson. Forget that it's political. I would think arson. I mean, somebody burns down your building.
Well, it goes back to the first chain of events. I would think that's covered. So it goes back to the civil unrest.
What she's saying is correct in regards to. I don't think any insurance policy is going to allow that.
Not a single one covers. But when the government is saying we're not going to stop it, boo-hoo for you. Like now you've had property damages. So there's just nowhere a property owner can get any type of protection back if we're not protecting them on the front end and stopping these things from happening, or at least prosecuting and allowing you to be able to recoup some of your funds somehow from the people that did it.
All right.
It's gonna be an interesting road to see how this is gonna work out and how it's gonna play out at the end of the day. I think it was a lot more pomp and circumstance in regards to that. Don't get me wrong. I agree with the law. I hope it gets completely implemented and everything else. Do I think it's gonna have lasting effects? No, I honestly don't think so. And we'll see what happens. Do I think we're gonna have the same level of rioting and protesting that we had in the middle of the summer? I don't think so at the moment. I don't think that's
the reason why these things are dangerous.
That's why we're passing all this stuff after we know that I don't think we're going to have the same kind of knee-jerk reaction that we had in the summer.
The reason why this stuff is truly dangerous, and that's whether or not you are rioting and looting and then not being prosecuted, whether it's for a leftist cause or a conservative cause or whatever, it doesn't matter. Groups of people that are able to break the law and then not face the consequences, it teaches the society that there is that you're not equal under the law, and that the law is no longer legitimate, and that your the police powers of the state are being misapplied or not applied, and are there, and then the legitimacy of the state becomes into question. And if you start having people just saying, well, screw the law because it doesn't matter anymore, that's like the beginning of the end. You can't have societies.
That's what Andrew warned,
like Seattle too.
Yeah, you can't start having otherwise law-abiding people say, "Oh, whatever. There's no law." I mean, that's a dangerous. That's actually why the state has to always, as best they can, enforce the law, because you have to have order in society. And if you start just handpicking what you're going to enforce and what you're not, you lose legitimacy. And as you lose legitimacy as a government, the citizenry just stop listening to you, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and that's why I do applaud Governor DeSantis for taking a firm stance in that would be counter to the narrative that wants people to bow to the mob. And Governor DeSantis is like, no, that's not going to happen here. So, and he's really the number one governor of all of them that has taken such a strong stance. So
yeah, he has. He's done a good job. He's setting a good example.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign. I'm Jonny Torres, your host. We've now reached the point where we're going to put our new guest under fire here as we talk about the state of the economy. The state of the economy and, where we've been the past 3 years, and, of course, where we've been this year, especially with the coronavirus, and what do we have to look forward to under a Biden administration. So, Dalton Grados, financial advisor, welcome to the show again.
Yes,
thanks for joining us. We saw a huge spike here, I would say, in this quarter. As the economy is now starting to figure out how to work around the coronavirus. Do you think that even under a Biden administration, short of a lockdown, does it drop off again, or would it take a lockdown to see a drop off in the economy again, or does it continue to recover? What are your expectations?
Yeah. Well, the important thing, as someone who trades in the stock market daily, the important thing to understand, which most people should understand, is that the stock market is not the economy.
Correct.
The stock market, in fact, you have the S&P 500. Which is the 500 biggest companies in the United States. That's like the typical barometer that we go off of for saying, oh, the stock market's up. And then of the top 500 companies in the S&P 500, you have the big five: Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook. Those are the big five, and they make up the top 20% of the 500. So five of the five top companies make up 20% of the market cap of the biggest 500 companies, and they make up 50% of the NASDAQ, which is the NASDAQ 100 tech companies. So
now, in your opinion, is that a problem? I mean, it seems to me like that's a pretty big problem.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. So that's why you see a damaged economy and a rocketing stock market, is because of all those companies actually did better, not in spite of, but actually because of the lockdowns. I mean, Amazon, that one alone, Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all of them, people were using Microsoft Teams for work, and, Netflix and Zoom, and that's in the NASDAQ.
Upgrading their electronics,
Exactly.
So buying new Apple devices, new Microsoft devices.
And he said, aside from a lockdown, but the ironic thing that I was thinking about before we started here tonight was, if Biden wanted to go through with another lockdown, the ironic thing about that is his whole campaign was based on the wealthy paying their fair share and helping the working American. Well, who did I just say did better because of the lockdowns? Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Those CEOs all doubled. In fact, Jeff Bezos became the richest person, and that's largely in part because of Amazon's revenue, but also because their stock rocketed so much.
Right.
So he's, I think, over $200 billion now. And as number one,
pre-divorce or after the divorce?
I think it's after.
So he's just making more money.
Yeah, he recovered all of that.
She missed out on the other half of that.
She should have asked for shares instead of a.
And now you know.
She probably has some shares.
And now you know.
So he's $200 billion. Number two is Elon Musk, and he's at $100 billion. So the thing about the difference between number one and number two is double the net worth.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, so hey,
just getting a hand over fist.
Yeah.
Well, now I lost my train of thought. No, so, so is this when Biden talks about basically there being a stronger economy coming out of a lockdown? Is that what he's alluding to? Because they're trying to say that, oh well, if we shut down the country again, then the economy is going to be stronger than ever. Which again, to me, makes no sense. If you shut down everything, we're going to go ahead and go back.
He's assuming that disease has more of an impact on the American economy than it does.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, how are these small businesses?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. If you had 100, sure. If you had 10 million people die, in 30 days time, yeah, sure. Okay. That would be, probably affect the economy. But I mean, the fact is that even if you open up the country completely and allow infections to go, I'm not suggesting that that's not going to be detrimental to some people's lives, and some people will die, but economically it's not really going to damage the economy. In fact, I mean maybe you've got some numbers off the top of your head, but I mean, look at the hospital systems. You think that the healthcare industry is not going to be making money? They're going to be making big money.
Well, they're missing out on some money because they're not doing the electives, right?
Well, they are. Yes, they are. And that's why you have facilities and hospitals that have actually laid off and shut down wings and whatnot. But all of that was because they expected there to be this massive wave. And then once that never really occurred, it was like, okay, I guess we are going to go back to doing surgeries. And I think most of them have went back to doing it.
It was that vacuum of the elective surgeries and even those that weren't elective. But I mean, it was the fact that they basically put everything on hold.
Yeah.
and then had to reopen kind of the floodgates. On
I
all
still
that.
can't even get a dentist appointment. I just need to get my teeth cleaned, and I can't make an appointment until the end of January.
You and your first world problems.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Struggle
like,
is
can we
real.
get
Don't
back to
attack
normal?
her because of those champagne issues.
She came in complaining about her pool cleaner, and having issues and needing a new pump for her pool. And I mean,
Well,
Yes,
the lucky thing is I'm in technology, and apparently they're the top 5.
Yeah.
So I did okay through COVID.
Well, and this kind of gets into maybe some of the deep state of things, but if they want to lock us down again, what they would then want to do is provide more stimulus. And I always say that no matter who is in office, who really runs the world is the central banks.
Yes.
And there's actually a book by Stephen Milford Goodson called A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind. It's actually banned for a long time.
Yes.
There's a book about the history of central banking. Imagine that. So it's like, what do Hitler and Julius Caesar and these Roman empires all have in common is they wanted central banking. So during the lockdown, since March, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet increased from $4 trillion to $7.1 trillion. And that's, of course, just the balance sheet they show you. There's like always 2 balance sheets. But how did they grow that much? And so if they can provide more stimulus, make people more dependent on that central bank, then we get what's called the totalitarian tiptoe, where you're getting closer and closer to more of a state-run government. If right now 57% of the GDP is from the federal government, that means 43% is from private corporations.
well, Dalton, is that the problem that a lot of
That's
people
the
have
numbers
right now?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let me back up.
See, he did have
So
them
you're
off the
saying
top.
you're saying that 57% of the American GDP is direct government spending, or it's somehow a derivative of government action?
Yes, related to government action.
So it's
And,
not
that
government
was
spending.
From,
It's just somehow related, and that's in the United States or worldwide.
United States.
Yeah, United States, and that was from George Gammon, who's a great follow as well if you're into this
Yeah,
stuff.
he's not saying that the
Yeah.
federal government is writing a check,
Right.
and those checks equal the 58%.
Yeah.
That he's discussing. He's saying the actions of regulation, required additional reporting, all those that actually create additional jobs, safety, making sure that you have the right light, like all that kind of additional regulation required.
I was
companies
shocked to
spend
learn.
money.
Jeffrey was telling me that like 900,000 people in Puerto Rico work for the government.
Oh yeah,
And that's
There's
like,
not
and
really
that's
any other
and
job
that's
out
and that's
there.
roughly the reason why that's a problem is that it's like roughly a third of the population, and I'm like,
That's why
how
the liberal leaning
a
parties.
third of the population works for the government. That's crazy.
Well, that's why the liberal-leaning parties in Puerto Rico continue to do so well, because anybody that's come through with any conservative-leaning policies have always been to further to reduce the dependence on the American
It
government.
means you're going to lose your job. I mean,
Exactly,
you've
yeah.
got at least a third of the people in the country that are scared of you because they might lose their job. That's just crazy.
So coming back to the main point, I think what's going to probably happen is that, and the Senate has already said this, that we're probably going to have another stimulus package down the pike. I do think they're going to refill PPP. I think they're going to do a lot of things to have additional stimulus when it comes to that. They've been advocating for, and this might be in regards to the executive orders that the Biden administration might hit, is automatically if you have student loans of less than $50,000, they're going to forgive it and move on, which is a crazy concept.
I'm sorry, but I am okay with that because I've been waiting
Because
to pay my
it
student
benefits
loans.
you personally.
Yes.
And I don't
Only
qualify
because
for
it
anything.
benefits because it benefits you personally.
I don't qualify for anything. So you know
Poor
what? If I got to
people-
deal with 4 years or Biden, I'm taking the student loan.
Poor people shouldn't
Oh
have to
my
pay.
gosh.
Poor people shouldn't have to pay off middle class and wealthy people's loans.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what the position is from the Republican side, that you're going to use the labor and the funds of the poor to pay for the middle class.
I made my choices,
education.
and I'm not complaining. I made my choices, but I did 10 years. I signed up for 10 years, was on the hook to get 2 years of college paid
Yep.
for.
I mean, I'm just saying, I
So-
could pay my stuff.
So there's
but I
a way.
haven't.
There
They
is
want
a-
to give it away.
There's a way for people
need
to
you
go
to
to
roll that
college
back,
in this
Jodie.
country.
Roll it back a little.
So I want to give sort of maybe an actionable takeaway for people that are listening and watching, because as we're talking about stimulus, government spending for more and more and more debt happening, what can we do for ourselves to combat it? And so what we're ultimately seeing is that the value of the dollar is going to decrease dramatically because of how much printing we're doing and how much more debt we're adding, especially under a Biden administration will only increase.
So go buy a house.
So exactly. So, and first of all, I have to say this as a disclaimer. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Make your own decisions. This is education only. And I have a YouTube channel, Grados Capital, that I talk about this stuff and I talk about the markets and everything. But so as the value of the dollar goes down, we don't want to hold on to dollars. We want to hold on to assets because those assets are going to go up, not necessarily because they're going up, but because it's going to take more weak dollars to purchase those assets.
But wouldn't that really only come to play, if the global economy recovers faster than the American economy? Because honestly, with the coronavirus obviously affecting everything globally, I mean, I think the only way the American dollar actually, devalues is if we start doing poorly and everybody else starts doing better.
Yeah, I don't. I think there will be a decoupling of what the. So at this moment, and this was released in Bloomberg.
I'm asking, by the way, I
talked to
wasn't-
Dalton about this
Yeah.
a little. Is that the average U.S. household is in a much better financial position than it has been in decades, which is a weird thing to say out loud, knowing that you still have 10 million people still on unemployment.
Because
everything
people
else.
made $6,000 more per year in the Trump economy.
So what
per household?
The issue is this: that with the reduction of household spending and the increase of paying debt off, more U.S. households are in a better financial stability than they were in the last few decades, which means that the purchasing power of individual households has increased, which again makes absolutely no sense if you talk about it out loud in this corona environment. But I mean, just look at this table. Who has been economically devalued because of the current state?
So
of
my
the economy?
question for
And
Dalton
it
then,
isn't.
I have a question for Dalton then. So, how does that work in practice? I understand what you're saying about not holding on to dollars and purchasing assets because the assets will increase in value and all that. Okay,
But those
I got
assets
that.
are clocked into with the U.S. dollar. I don't agree. I don't agree that the U.S. dollar is going to go down.
Well, so assuming what he's saying is true, because inflation does cause printing
mass
money causes inflation, and that causes dollar. Okay, so let's just assume all that's true. Okay. So you're telling me to go buy like a second home? I'm supposed to go buy a wheat field? I mean,
what do I go
what am
buy?
I doing? What am I doing with this cash? Because here's the thing: ultimately, I have to then turn that thing back into cash. I mean, to ever do anything with it. So what am I buying?
A good
What assets
hedges
am I buying?
against the dollar. Obviously, stocks, because those will be inflated, but also gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies as well. And a lot of people don't understand cryptocurrencies.
I can't eat gold.
No,
I
but you could
can't
sell
eat
gold later.
For dollars.
But
That's
yeah.
my point. And then you're just trading it back in for that same.
But the value of it will go up.
I understand the conversation in regard, and again, it's a great conversation to have, that people assume that the dollar is going to go down.
Okay.
Last time I remember, like Venezuela is going to start trading in U.S. dollars.
So is the
so one of the largest oil reserves in the world.
Reserves is the right
reserves in the
word.
world is
Yeah.
going to
They're
stop.
certainly not producing
is
it.
going
They
to
can't get
stop operating in their dinero, and they're going to start moving into U.S. dollars.
Pesos.
Pesos. I get the argument of inflation. I get all that argument. But at the end of the day, the U.S. dollar is one of the most valuable currencies in the world. And unless we tank, that's the thing.
But we could tank.
No, we cannot tank.
Well, I don't
saying
know.
we can't-
China's
more
if you talk to some military guys about China,
but-
we might not be number one.
But
even currently.
Anibal's point is, if the U.S. currency, which is the world reserve currency,
Correct.
if we actually collapse, the whole world
collapses.
thing,
Right.
get your aircraft carriers ready,
Yeah.
because the whole thing's going down. So I have a question in practice for Dalton then. So I think what you're saying is that if you're holding dollars, you're getting 0.00% from your bank. So you're not making any money off your dollars.
Or negative due to inflation.
Or negative due to inflation. But if you go ahead and take some of the dollars you have now and you buy an asset.
Property.
Cars suck, I know, but even though price of used cars are going up. So if you buy a little apartment, we'll just say some kind of condo or something, all right, and you buy it today, you're saying that between those two things, holding the dollars in a bank account and holding on to a real property asset like a condo or a house, you're saying that when you eventually cash in, whether you pull out the dollars from the bank account or you pull out the cash from the property, you're saying you are going to end up with more cash coming back out of the property because it's going to appreciate in value.
In value as the dollar decreases in value.
Right.
That's not necessarily true, though.
Can I ask a question, though, before we argue with it? So I'm curious, though, like, is there something that people should be possibly doing differently with their 401ks instead of holding on to that cash? Like, instead of dropping 10% into your 401k, should you just be doing your match and then taking the rest out and doing it? Because, like, I put
you got to do the match.
You got to do the match.
I do 10% into my 401k, but I get a match at 6. So should I take that other 4% and be putting it into something else?
Well, and then
not that you're advising or anything.
I'm not questions now.
I'm not saying you should do this.
That is an important disclaimer there. But your 401k is in the market, the stock market.
So it's going to be okay.
So the stock market, if it takes more dollars to buy those stocks, we're inflating the market more, and then that should hopefully balance things out. If we see an inflation in the supermarket, we'll also see more inflation in the stock market. So you should be
buy a dairy cow. Buy a cow, put it in your backyard.
I mean, because who knows these things? I don't know these things. I'm really interested in these things. I think it's the right age group to be figuring out these things.
It is a good age to have these conversations. Yes.
Well, look, as things evolve, and again, we don't know exactly what Biden plans to do other than shut down the economy.
He's not going to do anything. He's asleep right now. He is.
Yeah, it isn't him. It's the people behind him.
And it's also not the nation. It's the particular states that are going to continue to allow it.
Serious, not even joking. Not even joking. Does anybody actually believe that Biden is going to be able to work more than 4 hours a day?
No.
Seriously.
No.
Straight up.
No,
I'd say probably on average. That's probably what it'll average out to.
But there's going to be a lot more.
How does it work in the White House?
They're just going to put him on parade somewhere.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot more Democratic politicians in state and local houses that are going to be pushing the narrative of what they're going to want to do. California limiting who can go to Thanksgiving. Illinois.
His administration is going to be run amok. If you work in his administration, you're going to get to do whatever you want.
No, it's going to be run by the lobbyists and the advisors and probably the Clintons and everybody's going to have a door and honestly, I mean, again,
big payday. Washington's happy.
All the lobbyists, I'm sure, are incredibly excited.
Happy.
Oh yeah. Well, because Trump shut out a lot of those people. And obviously that's a whole nother topic as to who filled that role, but Trump shut out a lot of those lobbying groups, and that's exactly why a lot of these Republican consultants and former administration people were so ticked off at him, was because they got left out in the cold. But all right, thank you again, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign. Don't forget you can subscribe to the audio version of our podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, Audible, and Amazon now, all over the web. You can find the audio version of our podcast. For the video version, make sure you subscribe and follow the show on YouTube and Facebook as well. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Dalton, doing a great job there. We'll definitely be having you back to talk some more economic stuff. I'm sure Anibal would like to have some reinforcements on the economic topics. Biden's transition executive orders. This is something that did not make as much noise as it should have, because there's some pretty scary stuff in there. Biden, of course, already laying out what his plan is going to be, as I said at the beginning of the show, for the next 100 days, or the first 100 days of his administration. Certainly, much like Trump did with the Obama administration, they are now going to go and come after the Trump's agenda and try to undo a lot of those things. I think Anibal or Jodie has the list, but right off the top, I mean, they're going to put us right back into the Paris Accord. You guys have the other ones. What are some of the other ones? Obamacare is going to try to salvage salvage Obamacare.
We're going back into the World Health Organization. It's
Right,
going to
WHO,
repeal what Trump pulled out there. So I'm sure he's going to keep Fauci on the payroll as well as he does that. Repeal almost all of the travel bans from Muslim majority countries and reinstate Dreamers.
The Dreamers,
That's what I got on the
Dreamer
list,
situation
yeah.
is a little bit unique. It's because he cannot grant a path to citizenship. He can only issue a bill to Congress, which the Senate will kill.
Right.
What else?
Okay, so
I mean, to me, again, the WHO one and the Paris Accord are the ones to me that seem like the biggest waste of time.
I feel like the
I mean,
World
we-
Health
It's
Organization,
just
like,
a
why are we
transfer
even?
of wealth. All we're
Yeah.
doing, you could literally call those executive orders. We're gonna cut a check and we're
Yeah.
gonna give it to the
That's exactly
World Health
right.
Organization, and then we're gonna cut a check and give it to a bunch of third world
Yeah.
countries because we feel bad for being rich.
Well, and I could see if the World Health Organization hadn't recanted on itself over the last 8 months.
They were a disaster.
Like everything that they've said, they've come out and said we were wrong. And so it's not just like hey,
Disaster.
we're mad at Trump because he decided to defund them. It's like dude, they literally weren't doing their job at all. And anytime, and I say this all the time, if you don't do your job well, you shouldn't be doing it, right? And it's not even a Trumper thing with the World Health Organization.
No,
they
yeah.
sucked
Yeah.
so bad.
Same for the CDC, though.
So bad.
a lot of the UN itself sucks so bad. My issues with the UN are notable on this.
Well, and the Paris
podcast.
Accord makes no sense because we were already outperforming
Yeah.
all of the other countries based on the environmental metrics that they wanted us to adhere to.
It's a matter of us stroking the check because
Well, and
we were
meanwhile,
supposed
China's
to.
still a mess. India's still a mess. I mean, these countries aren't doing anything to improve their environmental situation.
You're not going to let them go through their economic development like we were given. That is rude, and that is whatever.
Weren't we like the first
exactly
country
what
that
they
had
want.
to come into order and pay money and make everything work? Like it was just us and everybody else was 10 years behind us in the Paris
regards to-
Accord. Like when they had to actually make their climate changes.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
it was just like for us, it's like, oh, good, America, here you go, get in it. You
Because
lead the
these
way.
are all-
You figure it all out. You put all the technology and time and stuff in, and then we'll just pick it up on the back end at the discount rate later.
Because the United Nations, the WHO, and everybody involved in the Paris Accord, these are all what they want to label themselves as anti-imperialist countries.
Yep.
They still think that the United States is an imperialist country. And that's why Obama actively tried to reduce our role in global politics because he wanted to put us on a level playing field when, again, the only reason that the country or the world is in any kind of stability right now is thanks to the American
Trump.
military and the American government.
It's this weird self-hate. I don't get it. It's like the left.
It's guilt.
It's like the left has this
That white
self-hatred
guilt. It is.
that
It
somehow
is.
then makes them feel morally superior. Like oh, we're this bad country, so let me put us down to make myself feel better. No, the rest of the world is literally dying to come here.
Right.
And if you go to most countries and you start telling them about America's, faults or whatever, they're going to be like, yeah, so what? We've got warlords running crazy
Yeah.
over here. Are you headed back now? Because I'd like to ride with you if you're headed back. I mean, I think Anibal was mentioning something about civil war starting back up in Africa. I mean, most of the world is dying to get here. We're literally one of the few countries where if you opened up the gates completely, people don't leave.
Correct.
Yeah. they're gonna
People
stay.
only come in. They
Right.
don't leave. No one's leaving.
Yeah. So, I know, and again, this is they're going to try to roll back a lot of Trump's policies, but again, this is where his legacy is truly going to be felt, which is in the court system. The federal court,
Yep.
The Supreme Court.
You can't roll that back.
Hey, we actually already won the election because we got 200 federal court. We got 200 federal judges appointed, and we got confirmed, I should say, and we got 3 Supreme Court justices confirmed. So honestly, from a policy standpoint and a legal standpoint, the republic will survive for the near
Well, look,
future.
to
did okay.
Anibal's point, Anibal made made this point in previous episodes, which is that obviously it's not great that by all accounts, it seems like Trump has lost the presidential election. But when you look at the national scale at which this election went, I mean, Republicans just destroyed the Democratic Party. I mean, they won the White House, right? But I mean, when it comes to Congress, when it comes to state houses, state legislatures, on down, even in some cases at the local level, I mean, it was a huge sweep.
We are going to see and feel the ramifications of the Democrats not taking where the priority is. They're assuming that the war was for the White House. The war wasn't for the White House. The war was for the local electors. And those are the individuals that are going to now redraw redistricting lines in Texas, in Florida, in Georgia, in the Carolinas, where we have control of those houses, those state houses, which then we get to dictate how those get cut apart. All these states, blue states that are losing populations, that are losing congressional house seats, are going to feel that pain for now another decade. When
Arizona's going to pick up a seat or two.
When we won in 2010, and we were able to build that role of power up again, we did it again in 2020. We did what the war really is, and that's taking control on the local level. And
well, like you said, where it's going to really pay off is when all these states and even Congress starts to do their redistricting. So
I think the Republicans completely control 27 states. I think something like that, and
You're
then they have.
right on the 20.
I think it's 27 completely, like governor and everything, and then I think it's like 35 where they control the legislature. Like I think, like the Republicans have the legislature in Pennsylvania. I think
they lost another,
but not the governorship, right?
During the Obama administration, the Democrats lost 1,000 state house seats,
right?
House seats.
So even if you have a Democrat governor, some of these states are still, if you're not, if the governor doesn't play ball with the Republicans, they can't get anything done. So to Anibal's point, redistricting should be beneficial to the Republicans. That redistricting, for those that want to talk about courts and fairness and all that, redistricting is a political process that is, comes through legislation that's done by politicians. It's a legislative thing, and it's a political process. So, it looks like Arizona will probably pick up a seat. Florida will.
Florida's picking up 2.
And we'll probably pick up 2. And
more,
the Northeast continues to lose. So these states in the North and out on the West Coast, they continue to shed residents, so they continue to shed seats. And if the Republicans do it right, then they give themselves the opportunity to maybe take over the House.
The problem that we're going to see in the future, in regards to what the country looks like, is that we need to. I think the number was only 44 counties in the country almost account for like 60% of the GDP, which is becoming a problem. Whereas it used to be a lot more spread out. The earning population was more spread out. Now it's very centralized.
Well, is that going to change with the riots? Because
but that's changing.
Hey, burn your city down if you want to. You Democrats burn your own cities down. Democrats. I mean, that's what they're doing. You're burning down your own city.
But that's changing with coronavirus, so people now move.
If you're a business, do you move into the city, or do you try to find like a little suburb that's like out of the mix? Right. I mean,
you try to get out of the city.
I mean, if you're a big business, why would you want to be in any major city? I can't even understand it.
Again, this shows that
moving out of your state completely.
Yeah, this show again. If it comes down to where President Trump lost his presidency because of 100,000 votes spread out through 2 or 3 different states, that shows that we're going to take back the House in 2022 is what it's going to show. And
I think it's going to happen.
If someone can have the same kind of energy and oomph and just not tweet as much, you win.
Don't offend someone.
Oh, that's going to be old hat. I mean, that's
going to be Crenshaw.
You're making a prediction. You're making a prediction.
Crenshaw. I like that.
My prediction is that we take back the House.
It's not going to be Crenshaw.
I think it's 2024.
It's going to be somebody with the last name that starts with T. I'm not saying
maybe, his son, maybe.
The son's not.
No, Ivanka, man. Ivanka's the one that's gonna. I think.
Did you say Ivanka last week too? Because
I did. I
cannot get on board with Ivanka.
I think she can come out of nowhere.
No, did you see my prediction for Ivanka? Like
No.
what her next step's going to be?
No, what?
And it makes complete sense.
What?
Right? Because the Trumps, technically, well, maybe not Ivanka, but, the Donald obviously is now Florida resident of Palm Beach County.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I see where
So
you're going.
Ivanka versus Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Are they
You think she
officially
takes her out, man? I mean, what's
I do.
the? I
in
mean,
Miami?
I think she's
In a
the only
heartbeat.
person that
In
can
a
take her
heartbeat.
out.
but what's isn't that one of those districts where it's like 60-40 or 55? Like, isn't that one of those districts where the Democrat wins no matter
congressional
what?
district is
I
that
don't
one,
think
though?
it's that bad, and I think she's one of the anomalies that could win it. So
Also, it'll be a midterm.
Hey, she runs. She can run right in 2022.
Yeah.
And
but
if it
the
doesn't
question
work
is
out,
she a Florida resident or is she a New York resident? I think she might still be
I think
a New
she
York
just has to
resident.
establish residency a year out, I think.
Well, I know, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what, what depends on what her preference
So
is.
she runs for that. If she doesn't win,
I
then
think she has a better shot in Florida than she does in New York.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
yes,
by leaps
yes,
and bounds,
Yes,
leaps and
yes.
bounds.
This, yeah. I don't know why people say like, "Oh, Trump, New York." Like, no,
Nah,
whatever.
he's not winning anything in New
Hey,
York.
Trump won a few extra seats in New York. District 11 and District 22 in New York were flips.
I mean,
Yeah.
but
That's
that's
Staten
not
Island.
the
That's
city.
Staten Island.
Yeah,
He
okay.
won
Come
Staten
on,
Island.
come on. Yeah.
That has the tip of Manhattan as well.
So one thing as that's like a silver lining as we're kind of talking about control or at least balance within the government, and I think we have a lot of American patriots that really love this country that are concerned about seeing our values being turned over to a far left or Marxist ideal. And one thing that I always like to focus on and remind people is I think one thing Trump really did very well during his years as president that is going to leave a lasting impact is, of course, number one, the Supreme Court. But not only that, but 200 plus federal and district judges that he appointed that are going to be objective and uphold the Constitution, which is really something that no matter what side you're on, you should be proud of.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to
Yeah.
help us in the long run, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Taxes is what's going to be detrimental. I think the Biden's already said he's going to reverse the taxes. And
If the corporate tax rate goes up,
He's gonna do it. He's gonna
That's
increase
talk
it.
about a killer, man. That to the economy, that would be like one of the fastest ways to contract job growth. That would be like that overnight. Because remember when it went from 35 to 21. Overnight, you had companies doing things like Walmart, as an example. They had no choice. I mean, they had to raise their starting wage at all of their stores, and they did.
Apple
And
brought a whole ton of their money back into the country.
all that repatriation of money. I mean, it was just it was huge. It was just
Yeah.
such a shot in the arm for him to go back on that for political brand. It's not gonna.
All right, so we're going to get to the rapid fire portion of the show as we start to wrap it up. This is, of course, what you're watching. All right, it's the stories that we didn't get to today, but you are going to be watching closely and maybe make it onto the next show. So we'll throw our newbie we'll throw him in the deep end here to get his take. Dalton, what's the story that you're watching that we didn't get to discuss today?
Oh boy. We didn't get to discuss it in full. I was looking at actually Joe Biden's COVID advisor. So he was saying, we were talking about plans to lock down the economy again.
Right.
They came out recently, and of course, people say these things and then they backpedal a little bit if they face opposition. But I think what he said most recently is actually maybe worse. He says, we're not in a place where we're saying shut the whole country down. But we're thinking more like a series of restrictions that we will dial up and down depending on how bad a spread is taking place in a specific region. Just trust us.
So in other
we'll
words,
make
they
the
have
rules.
they have no idea.
You
As
just
we
listen
go.
to us.
Yeah. Don't
that
ask
the same-
questions.
Is that the same guy that said that, after 75 years of age, it's okay to die or something like that?
Oh my gosh.
It was some horrible quote. He's like,
Yeah.
after 75, I just
Yeah.
kind of let life take its course, Anyways, it reminds me of the death panels and that whole situation.
I'm over coronavirus.
All right, Joe.
People are.
What's the story we missed tonight?
I guess probably from what I'm hearing, in the next 12 to 24 months, maybe things are different in the local Hillsborough County Republican Party. I'm not making any. I'm not making any predictions. I'm not making any predictions. I'm trying to have some conversations. I'm just trying to listen to people, and we're trying to find a way that we can just grow and bring about some positive change, and hopefully that happens in a way in which kind of everybody stays on board, and we can just kind of keep everybody that's there, but maybe add to it. So. Cool. I know a lot of people are talking about it. We'll see if anything happens.
I like it.
I have no comment on that.
Yeah. Well, I'll be optimistic on this one.
I'm not a member. Should I join? Should I join while all this is going on?
Well, that's going to be after the show. We'll get into that. Jodie, what story are you watching?
I am actually watching the changes to the citizenship test. So,
good one.
Funny
I
story.
thought we were going to take that.
No, we decided to do it later because we're all going to take a practice citizen test and see if any
live.
of us.
We should do it live. Yeah.
Oh,
no
we can do it
studying.
live.
We're not doing
No
it.
studying. It's the 20. It's the 2010.
We're gonna see if any of us would pass. So I'm watching that. It's
That'd be
not
like a
really new
2-hour
news.
show.
Oh, I'm passing it in a
No,
heartbeat.
Johnny could ask the question, and we
pass it in
have
a
to
heartbeat.
write it down
yes.
quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Quickly, we write it down quickly. You get
And then
10
we
seconds,
score it,
and then you
yeah.
move on, and then we score it, and we get our and then we have somebody off mic, whatever, scoring it.
Just awesome.
Oh, and
And
then we
then-
could get little flags.
And then we get it, and then we get our
get a
test
score.
results
Yeah,
back, and it
right.
all has to happen live and no studying.
I like
honor
that.
So
system here.
That's what I'm going to follow,
I think
and
that's
I'm going to
happening
get
next week.
practice tests together for us.
We're gonna check your
There's a
cookies.
list of 128, and you just
we're
get
gonna
random.
Everybody has to show their Google search
Yeah, we can't do
history.
the whole thing.
Your Google search history has to be open.
Well, you
can't
get to
be.
practice for
I
a
don't know that I'd go that
citizenship
far.
test.
All right, so we're going to practice a citizenship test, and then we're going to come and do the 20 question deal.
Yeah.
20
And see who
questions, you
passes.
can roll through that real fast.
Yeah, we can.
Hey, like I had a former professor used to say, either you know the answer, either you know it or you don't.
That's right.
There's no reason for you to have to sit there and think about it.
I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
I've continued on with my rapid fire.
I like it. No, I like it. Go ahead, Anibal.
Yours is entertaining. Mine's not going to be entertaining whatsoever.
Stoked about a citizenship test.
I think I know Anibal's answer, but yeah.
So
all right.
for me-
Now Joe wants to come back next week.
What's
No, next
what's
week's
the punishment
Thanksgiving.
for
It's the
what's the
week after.
punishment for failing?
Oh yeah, because I won't be here next week,
If you fail,
we
what's
need
the
so we got to
punishment?
hold on to it.
I'm going to think about that as well.
You get kicked off the show. You're off the.
citizenship-
You're off.
yeah.
No, you immediately.
You're off the island.
You immediately.
You have to wear a Biden.
You immediately.
No.
Like a Biden
You're
shirt.
immediately off the show for that.
think that
for
would
that
be
for
a
the rest
great
of
For the
that
rest of the show.
I think that would be a
You get
great
kicked
one
off
for
the
next
show.
week because we don't
You have to
have
sit in the
Jonathan.
corner. You have to sit in the dark corner
it's
over there
really easy.
behind Dalton.
Yeah,
with
you have
like
to
a-
sit in the corner.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it.
With a cap.
And then you can just reference that person every now and then.
Yeah.
You have
to
what
awkwardly
do
sit
you
in the
think?
corner.
Oh, never mind. You don't have a mic. You don't have a mic because you're not an American.
This show
You're no
will be
patriot.
taking away citizenship papers.
Yeah.
There we go. I love it.
That's what the power that this show has now.
I don't
Exactly.
think I have citizenship. I just have a passport.
Oh, let's not go there right now with your superstore situation.
Anibal, what country's getting overthrown today?
So, in international news with countries that are fallen, Peru is on its third president in less than a week.
I should have laughed.
Really? It's a
Wait.
winning recipe.
So Peru,
They had an election, or
They had
an
no.
overthrow.
So the Congress in Peru is the opposition party, and they voted the president out. Bless you. Voted him out
me.
last week. They got another person to become president. He lasted 6 days after he tried to take control of Peru. Yeah, he resigned yesterday, and today the new sworn-in president. His name is Francisco. He's an engineer.
They're all trying to
and
pull a
accountant.
Venezuela. You know what I
So
mean?
that's really what's happening in Peru. Ethiopia is on the brink of civil war with Eritrea and the other.
Then Nigeria's a mess too, isn't it?
That's on another plane completely.
in Ethiopia, is that religious? Is that a
No,
religious issue?
with that one, it's they're
Diamonds.
So with Ethiopia, it's a federalistic society at the moment, and their regions are broken down by culture and religious purposes.
Right.
And so they're trying to make it to where it's less federal and more top heavy. And there are some districts in Ethiopia that are upset about it. And they started bombing Eritrea, which is a completely different country. Of
course.
And the last one from this week is Armenia basically took it in
It was one story, Anibal.
I know.
Just kidding. Go ahead.
The world is burning, and this supports my theory
Look,
that the
unless our
U.S.
media is
dollar
sending over
is
more
not going
Kardashians,
anywhere
I don't
anytime
care.
soon. With that person back there saying that
You can't just print it out of thin air.
Yes, you can if you're American.
It's all electronic
Have you not
now,
been
actually.
an American lately? We can do whatever we want. The federal government in 2013 almost printed out $1 trillion coin.
Yeah, that's exactly
Look
what
that
we're doing.
up, people of America. We can do what we want. China, really? You want to talk about something? We can forgive our own debt like this. People don't know.
Yeah,
we
what are you gonna do about
America. We can do what we want.
It's like walking in with my blue passport.
I actually thought Trump.
I'm sorry. What color is my passport? It's blue. I can do whatever I want.
I thought Trump was just going to tell China as punishment for COVID. I thought Trump was going to be like, yeah, we don't owe you anything.
Hey, 60 more days. 60 more
got
days.
time.
Anything can
Oh, who's going to get pardoned? Because you know Trump. Because you know Trump doesn't care. Trump's going to pardon himself.
Anyone with a
He's
Trump
gonna-
last name is going
he's
to
gonna-
get pardoned.
Everybody in the Trump administration is going to get a pardon. Like as you leave on the last day, he's just
You're
going to
pardoned. You're
like just pardon
You're
everybody.
That's the
Be like
severance.
Oprah.
I mean,
It's gonna be like Oprah's favorite things up in the
that's-
White House.
no, like
Trump's
in all
version of
in all
severance.
seriousness, we know that Trump is not afraid to pardon controversial people anytime he wants to.
Yeah.
So what's he going to do in the last month?
You just start handing them out.
Who's going to get
it's
pardoned?
It's going to be on a
Is-
printer. That's the way that's going to happen. I think he's going to do something.
I don't know. I don't
wouldn't-
think he cares that much about anybody else other than himself.
Hey.
Oh, I think it's just gonna.
I
he's
think
gonna
he's-
do it to aggravate
I
other
think
people,
exactly.
not
But I
think
because
he's
he
part of the
cares.
police.
Who's the
gonna
guy that's in
pardon
Russia
him.
right now for the Wiki?
Snowden.
But if
Snowden.
Johnny, if that's the way he felt, why did he do what he did on the prison reform and getting some of the people out of jail that were literally there for non-violent
What? I
stuff?
thought
that
Trump was a
just makes
racist.
sense.
I don't understand.
Because I
Not
think
to
that was
those people, he's
genuinely.
not.
I think for him, it was about moving the needle.
That
it
was
about
Ivanka and Jared.
Yeah, I mean, that was a Jared
Well,
thing.
and
It
Kim.
was-
Kim Jong Un.
Kardashian.
Oh yes.
oh my gosh! All right.
When Kanye called him up, hey, I want to come up to the White House. Trump's probably like,
Oh,
Kim
the
coming?
biggest, the biggest
with
New
you?
Year's Eve party in the White House. Oh, party!
him, it was
It's
all-
crazy.
Hey, Kim could be
No,
first
look,
lady. You never know.
For Trump, it was all about
Sorry.
celebrity. For Trump, it was all
supposed to
about
wrap it up.
celebrity. I
yeah,
think.
the marketing, yeah.
I think if Trump had a little bit more of a party animal in him, I mean, I think we would have seen a very similar presidency to the Reagan administration, where you would have seen, and especially if he had more of Hollywood support, you would have seen parties and dinners and all this kind of stuff. I think anytime Trump brought in a rapper, whether it was Kanye or Van Jones or Kim Kardashian, it was all about the visibility. It was all about making those headlines and being among the celebrities. He's always wanted. I mean, again,
He is a celebrity.
what other
Yeah.
developer do you know is a media celebrity, is a national celebrity like he is?
Right.
And he's been wanting to be a celebrity, a socialite, a figure of our culture for 40 years.
Well,
And-
he has been.
Well, he has been for
well, that's
40
what I'm
years.
saying.
that's a whole
But that has
different
been by
conversation.
design. He's been doing that by design.
I do find
he
it
understood
ironic
at an early age
Yeah.
how powerful it was to be a media figure,
Yeah.
and so that's why he always knew how to manipulate the media and get headlines
Yeah.
and stay favorable with the public.
These next 60 days are going to be wild, and I'm so excited. He hasn't tweeted in 8 days, and people are going crazy.
He's been,
Are you
he's been
sure?
tweeting
Nah.
about the
No,
elections.
he's been very chill.
No, he hasn't.
No,
He has
he's been tweeting,
all over
I
the
won the
place with
election.
these elections.
No, he's been
Yeah.
tweeting, I won the
He's been
that-
tweeting, but he hasn't been speaking much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's been tweeting.
He hasn't been speaking for 8 days.
He's been saying
And the
stupid
wor-
stuff on his tweets.
Hey, he can say whatever he wants. It is
he
what
can.
it
It's
is.
just let
Well,
the man do it.
60
Do
days.
America, hey, America's gonna,
60 days.
America's going to miss Trump. I mean, I think
I am.
when we're 8 to 10 years, when we're 8 to 10, 12 years out for Trump, watch and see how he's viewed when we look back.
Well, again, we're going back.
People are going to say
would
we
be
never.
interesting.
We're
people
going
are-
back to
No, we
boring
didn't give
old
him a chance.
politics.
People
Yeah.
are going to say we never had it. The economy was never as good as it was then. We should have went back. Watch. That's why I actually think that he has a chance in 2024 to drop that bomb right there. I think he has.
No.
God.
I don't think he's going to
I think because he's going to get to come back and say, "Hey, I made a couple mistakes. I said a couple things that were offensive. I'm sorry.
He's never gonna
I don't
do
think
that.
he
chilling
was-
out a little bit. I'm gonna chill out a little bit,
He's
but
not
we're
gonna
gonna
do
get back
anything.
to winning and let's make America great again.
was
He's gonna come out. He's gonna
Great
come out and say,
again.
No, he
80
was,
years old.
he was no.
He'd
He'd be 77.
He'd be 77.
We got to wrap it up.
Well, again, I mean,
Bombs over Baghdad.
And Biden is 77.
he's too old now.
Or 78.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All right. There's the
I'm not going to drop the whole phone. I'm not crazy.
Don't do that.
I'm not crazy. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, so much for watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you again to Dalton, Grados, Joe Wicker, Jodie, Lopes, and Anibal, Cabrera. Thank you to everybody who is watching this. Sorry we couldn't bring you in on the show live this time, but we'll get that sorted out before next week. What?
It's Thanksgiving. Aren't we taking a break?
I don't know. We haven't
We
decided.
were going to discuss that today.
I know. It's
Sorry. I'm sorry. I ruined it.
Jody. All right, so we're going to figure out what we're going to do next week. But nonetheless, make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And again, for all of the episodes, the video version of the show is also on YouTube. And subscribe to the audio version of the show on Apple, Spotify, Google. Man, I had them down all show. It's Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Audible podcast platforms. Thank you so much to everybody for watching.
Bears beat Battlestar Galactica. Boom.
What?
Bye.